All right. Hello, everybody. How's everyone doing this beautiful Sunday? Star family, star friends. Holly says, fellow visible sky friends. Hello, Holly. Thanks for joining. Welcome, everybody, to the Sunday live stream. Hope you're all having a very nice week and a very nice day. We got some big things coming up this week, astrologically. Very big things, actually. We have a full moon in Ophiuchus. That's going to be interesting. That's going to be on late Tuesday, early Wednesday. We've got Mercury forming a square between the Saturn and Neptune conjunction. We talked a little bit about the Saturn-Neptune conjunction last week in terms of building some things that are more soul-fulfilling in our life, more, better for our mental health and spiritual health. This is going to go exact early next year. So we're starting to get the prelude now. Saturn and Neptune are within 1 degree starting this week, and Mercury certainly activating it on Monday, really giving us that sneak peek. So if you want to know what next year is going to be like for you, pay very close attention to what unfolds in your life over the next few months. But I would say let's start this week because, this is getting activated already. So it's not going to really start anything until early next year, but we're certainly getting the prelude to that. So early in the week, good to be, I think all week, I think it's good to be cognizant, I think intentional. We have a lot of squares this week, which are very constructive for building things and challenging yourself and moving energy forward. But they can be collectively a bit challenging, right? As squares are the clash kind of energy, but really the builder energy. And I think that's the way that is best to work with it. So squares there with Mercury on Monday, tomorrow, Venus squaring up to Pluto tomorrow. That could be some deeper energy in our relationships and with our values sort of transforming there. Good to be open, but also boundaried, boundaried where appropriate, but then open in our deeper relationships where we do want to have trust and depth and healthy vulnerability and stuff. Then the weekends, more squares. Mars squares Uranus on Sunday. That's quite erratic energy. We can feel a little impulsive, maybe a bit like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, as they say. So good to be responding versus reactive. And again, just being intentional. This is all about, with Mars and Uranus, being more in alignment with our true self, listening to our excitement, listening more to our true self, but doing it intentionally. And then lastly, on Sunday, Jupiter squaring Saturn exact. That's a yearly energy. That's been going on since August of last year. So another thing about this week is that you can reflect on what's been changing in your life since August, or heck, as far back as 2020. Saturn and Neptune were conjunct in 2020, and we've been in this integration of that this past almost 12 months now, moving that energy forward, building that energy from the seeds of 2020. And so this will be the last contact with that this week, and it's all about building a future, alive, an energy that is both open-minded but also realistic, seeing opportunities but also being grounded at the same time. But this really is the manifestation aspect. Jupiter and Saturn are both the manifestation planets. We saw a lot change in the world since 2020 in terms of new beginnings with the world, and even for me personally, a lot of people personally. And it's definitely been the implementation of that. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at the chat here, see who's all with us. Holly, again, great to see you. Margaret, thanks again so much for moderating. Manda, always a pleasure. Hello from Northern California, says Manda. Erica Alexandria, great to see you. Erica says, hello, star friends. I'm a little under the weather. Summer colds suck, but I'll be tuning in while resting. I'm sorry to hear that, Erica. I hope you feel better. I hope you get over it, but that immune system is, really a positive thing, right? I used to think that like the cough, the congestion, the headache, all that was the sickness. And then once I started to think about it, like, actually that's my body, fighting this off. That's actually my body doing its job. That's the positive aspects of this. It's helped me a little bit with these kinds of things. So anyways, I hope you feel better, Erica, and I hope you're tip-top right away or as soon as possible. Aquarius Sky Clock, always a pleasure. Evening from Northumberland with Aquarius Sky Clock. Amanda has a question. Hey, Athen, what would you say about the midheaven in Ophiuchus? What's the midheaven in Ophiuchus like? Well, I'll answer what the midheaven is for everybody, and then I'll cover what Ophiuchus there is as an example. Well, here in the sky, at least for this date, I think I had this pulled up for like New York or something. But here's an example. We have the midheaven in Taurus. This isn't everybody. The midheaven changes everywhere in the world. So right now, we all have a different midheaven right now, literally as we speak, because we're all in different parts of the world. But if this was someone's natal chart, midheaven in Taurus, so the midheaven represents really a life path point, because the ascendant, the midheaven, these are unseen forces. The midheaven is true south if you're in the northern hemisphere, and true north if you're in the southern hemisphere. And this true north, true south, there's no actual visual representation of this. If anything, it's a magnetic point if you factor in the magnetic north pole there. But so because it's unseen, we read it as an unseen part of life, in the sense that it's not part of our personality. I think this gets confused a lot in mainstream astrology, is that the ascendant and even the midheaven are sort of our personalities. But what we find is actually that these are more like life path energies. It's what life is helping us develop. And by the way, if you do want to see where your midheaven is, I think Margaret already put the link there. But Margaret will put a link here in the chat about seeing where your midheaven is, so you can see what sign this is in. It's the MC. It's the MC in your chart. Again, representing true north or true south. But what does this mean symbolically, right? Well, it's a point that is usually the highest part of somewhere along the highest part of the ecliptic. And so it represents the highest part of our lives, which in the chart is things like our careers, our achievements, our accomplishments, right? And the midheaven is the sort of legacy of that, the sort of life path point to that. So the midheaven becomes very important, very crucial, very helpful in astrology, because it shows us in many ways what I would call our legacy. Our legacy. What are we here to leave behind in this life? What are we here to achieve, kind of, not just in a career sense or not just in a material sense, but what are we here to, leave behind in this life in terms of our legacy, or what is our kind of purpose here, productively perhaps? So the sign's going to show us the qualities of that. So if it was Taurus, for example, the qualities of that would be really leaving behind an energy of resourcefulness, of material security, of abundance, of steadiness. You can see it doesn't represent so much the personality as much as it represents what we're here to cultivate and leave behind in this life. So we can see that come through our careers a lot. We don't want to get too, we don't want to use nouns to describe the career with the sign, because the signs represent more of the qualities, right? Like Taurus is resourceful, Taurus is grounded, Taurus is steady, abundant. So these are more of the qualities that we're here to cultivate and leave behind. But where it starts to get very interesting is once you start to look at the ruler of that, and not to get too complicated, but Venus rules Taurus, and so we can then see where Venus is, and that can tell us exactly what area of life. So this would be, if this was a chart, this would be the 9th house. We can see this with the blue lines, by the way, but let's say Venus is in the 9th house. Then we can get more precise. Then we can say, okay, our careers, our achievements are maybe through in this case, the 9th house areas, which might be marketing, it might be teaching, it might be publishing, it might be law, basically all the kind of 9th house kinds of things. But anyways, the sign is showing us the qualities, Taurus, resourcefulness. If it was Ophiuchus, for those that have your midheaven in Ophiuchus, this would be the qualities of the healer, and that you're here to leave behind healing and personal transformation. And so if you can find a way to incorporate that in your careers, your public life, or productive life in some way, that's going to really help you really fulfill your legacy, fulfill your destiny, if we think about destiny from the more productive side of things. But anyways, you could do this for any sign. Any sign. All the signs have a different quality of life. But check your midheaven. If you don't know what your midheaven sign is, Extremely powerful, extremely helpful. Creative Guru, great to see you. Good morning from Colorado Springs, Colorado. All right. Thanks for joining. Connie, hello from Vancouver, BC. I'll be listening while cleaning my balcony. Okay, great. Hope you have some sun there. I think the weather's probably warming up a bit. It's always beautiful this time of the year over there in Vancouver. I hope you're enjoying that beautiful spring. I hope you're having beautiful spring over there, early summer. Nickname Man, great to see you. Hello, everyone. Holly, I am back from a wonderful 34-day vacation on beautiful Vancouver Island. Oh, speaking of Vancouver, okay. Beautiful. April, hi, everyone. Morangas, great to see you. Hello from Belgium. Malini, hello from sunny Santa Fe, New Mexico. Should be sunny there. Felicity, aloha, Athen, and everyone. Great to see so many familiar faces and some new ones as well. Noah says, hey, Athen, I'm having a yard sale Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. How's that gonna be with those squares? So let's see. So this weekend, right? So this weekend. Well, it could be quite constructive if this is in alignment with what you started in August. So if you started anything in August that dealt with your home or dealt with, changing things up with your living situation or whatever the yard sale is about, or maybe it's about more income or more resources, then I think it's going to be very constructive. Could be very abundant for you. You could see a lot of sales perhaps, or, finish things up, because again, it's the last contact with Jupiter and Saturn with the square. So I really want to stress the fact that for all of us, whatever started in August is actually very constructive in terms of it being wrapped up here in this week, at the end of this week, on Sunday into next week. A lot of indications of this were found in December. December, there were some things shifting in the right direction with a lot of this energy. Okay, but all in all, in that sense, I think it could be great. I think there's some of that unexpected Mars square Uranus that's probably more challenging there collectively for everybody. So in that sense, trust your intuition and follow your excitement. But again, just because we want to stay grounded with this one, be aware of any kind of rash or impulsive decisions. I don't know, maybe someone comes to you with a certain price quote or something like this, and maybe your first instinct will be to say yes immediately or no immediately. But the Mars square Uranus is a reminder to kind of take a little bit of a step back and maybe reflect on things a little bit, that it can be, okay to take our time with things and not rush out of the gates, because, we don't want to trip ourselves up or, again, react to anything when responding could be better. But this is more of a caveat to that one. I think this one is, really about having a little bit more excitement in our life. So just being open to new experiences, being open to change, being open to connecting a little bit differently, and maybe approaching the yard sale differently. But this is going to be mostly on Sunday. So let's see, Friday, Saturday, things might be a little bit standard, and then Sunday with the Mars square Uranus, maybe that's the time to mix things up or experiment with different things, and again, just be a little bit flexible and adaptive to the situation. But all in all, I think it's going to be a very constructive weekend for all of us, and of course our personal charts really speak to it a lot too. But that's some of the ways I would work with that kind of energy there. Karina, great to see you, great to be here, says Karina, realizing how intention is necessary with the full moon conjunct my Mars. All right, yes, so you have your Mars in Ophiuchus, we have the full moon in Ophiuchus, and by the way, Amanda has her midheaven in Ophiuchus. So this full moon being in Ophiuchus is really going to activate things for both of you. If anyone has any planets in Ophiuchus, it's going to be an important full moon. I mean, Ophiuchus full moons are always important, as it illuminates really the spiritual world. We have the galactic center, the middle of the Milky Way. For those that have seen it, that very deep, clustered, energetic band across the sky, that's Ophiuchus. That's where Ophiuchus crosses. I mean, the galactic center crosses the ecliptic at Ophiuchus, the path of the planets. The crossing of the planets and the galactic center is Ophiuchus. And so very energetic, very powerful, very deep. And so this full moon is going to really illuminate things there. And of course, any planet or point that you have there, it's going to illuminate that as well. So like we were saying with the midheaven for Amanda, that's going to be probably illuminating your path forward, Amanda, with career and achievement and accomplishment. How you can incorporate some of that healer energy into some of this stuff. And with Karina, your Mars. So how with Mars in Ophiuchus, you need to be really motivated towards the deep, real, raw aspects of life, and very motivated to the truth and this deep diving and all this stuff. So that's being illuminated, that's being activated, and it's probably going to be a whole new chapter with that side of yourself. Fundamentally more driven, more direct, more assertive, by becoming more aware of that, at least in healthy and balanced ways. But really in the way that you'll do it, which should be in the Ophiuchus way, in the way of depth, realness, rawness, and a willingness to heal and transform in general, depending on what house that is for you. Hans, greeting, great to see you. Greetings. Jay Don, greetings as well. Thanks for joining. Thank you, Margaret, for the birth chart calculator link. Bobby, great to see you. Greetings from Singapore, Athen and company. Thanks, Bobby. Midheaven and Gemini would be incorporating curiosity, interests, exchanging, learning, practical energy through your productive life and career. Jay Don. Mind Mastery, my wife Joanna. Everyone give a shout out to Joanna. Mind Mastery asks, what's the difference between Midheaven sign and Midheaven ruler? Sorry if you said this already, I missed it. Right, so I mentioned the ruler, and so that is the planet that rules the sign of any sign. So let me go ahead and I'll type this in. We can get, since we have some time here today, it's not too many other questions. I'm going to go ahead and type in the rulership list, okay? So this means, actually I'll just say it. So hopefully at this point everyone knows what their midheaven sign is, okay? It's going to be Aries through Pisces. It's going to be one of these. Again, you can use the chart calculator to find out what that sign is. So if the sign's Aries, then your ruler's Mars, okay? And so in this case, you want to look to see where Mars is in your chart, okay? Where Mars is going to tell you more about your midheaven. So for example, if the midheaven was Aries, which is to incorporate more assertiveness, more proactivity, more direction in life, this is Aries kind of stuff, then Mars is going to tell you where and how, in which area. And so maybe Mars is in your relationship sector. Maybe Mars is in your home sector, relationships of the 7th, or your home sector of the 4th, okay? And so this can tell you more about it. So the ruler tells you more about your midheaven. It really tells you, the ruler of anything tells you more about that thing. But in this case, you can actually get a lot of insights about your career, your productive life, again, your legacy, by looking at not only the sign, but as Mind Mastery said, the ruler as well. And anyways, for Aries, it's Mars. If it's Taurus, it's Venus. If it's Gemini, it's Mercury. If it's Cancer, it's the moon. If it's Leo, it's the sun. If it's Virgo, it's Mercury. If it's Libra, it's Venus. If it's Scorpio or Ophiuchus, we're looking at this traditionally as Mars. You could also use Pluto and Ophiuchus respectively there. If it's Sagittarius, it's Jupiter. If it's Capricorn, it's Saturn. If it's Aquarius, it's also Saturn traditionally, but you can also use Uranus. And if it's Pisces, it's Jupiter traditionally. I do recommend looking at the traditional ruler. So Jupiter there, or modernly Neptune you can use as well. So there's a little guide there in the chart calculator on the printout where you can see the symbols and find out what area of life that is. Maybe just Google it. First house is assertiveness. Second house is resources. Third house is communication. Fourth house is home. Fifth house is self-expression. Sixth house is work. Seventh house is relationships. Eighth house is deep stuff, deep diving. Ninth house is adventures. 10th house is career. 11th house is communities. And 12th house is spirituality. JW, hello Cosmic Ones. Thanks for joining, JW. 82 Molly says, any difference between the southern and northern hemispheres, positioning and so forth? Yeah, great question. So in terms of sign placements, the signs are the same regardless, okay? And the only thing that really swaps in the chart is that midheaven and the opposite point, which is the IC. Meaning that if you are in the southern hemisphere and you're looking at the planets, you're looking north, right? Because if you're in the southern hemisphere and you're looking at the path of the sun from that vantage point, you're looking north. Now, if you're in the northern hemisphere, like most of us, and you're looking at the path of the planets, then you're looking south. You're looking south. So all that really changes with astrology is that all the signs and the houses are the same, except that if it's a northern hemisphere chart, the chart itself is representing a visualization of someone looking south. That's all that means. And if you're in the southern hemisphere, the chart represents a visualization of someone looking north. But in a practical level, it doesn't change anything about the chart. We're not swapping signs or houses or anything like that. Now, I will tell you where it really makes things very interesting on a practical level, and that's when you're comparing tropical astrology with sidereal or true sidereal astrology. This is the difference between, as many of you know, mainstream Western mainstream uses tropical, which uses the seasons, whereas sidereal uses the visible sky. So when you're dealing with the seasons, the reason why the hemispheres is so important is because they have fixed Aries with spring. Well, not even with spring. They fixed Aries with the northern spring equinox, with that March 20th around there. So what does that mean for people in the southern hemisphere? So obviously a lot of my clients, a lot of people who connect with us, not so much in the live stream because they're asleep right now, but our Australian friends and anyone in the southern hemisphere, South America, there's a lot of us who are into true sidereal as well. And it really impacts them, because how can you create a tropical chart, one that's based around the northern spring, for those in the southern hemisphere? Makes zero sense, right? Again, in case it's not clear, the tropical zodiac, the mainstream Western zodiac, fixes the zodiac around the northern spring equinox, around the March 20th-ish point. But what's going on in the southern hemisphere in late March? It's autumn. It's autumn. So there's a lot of ideas that if you're going to use tropical, you need to be inverting the signs for the southern hemisphere. That if you are born in the southern hemisphere, your Aries should actually be Libra, and your Taurus should actually be Scorpio, if you're going to use the vernal equinoxes. Big stuff there. Probably things I don't mention as much. Probably do need to mention that more, because to me that really shows the simplicity of tropical, and perhaps where tropical can be more developed. And yes, there are plenty of tropical astrologers who will invert the signs like this. They will invert the signs. But it's something that's not talked about as much. And I feel for all of you southern hemisphere folks out there who, been really with this tropical system, really using a system that is not only can it be more accurate for everybody, but especially for you guys, being that the whole system is based on the vernal point of the northern hemisphere, not the southern. Amanda says, thanks, Athen. Legacy, very interesting. Is Chiron the ruler of Ophiuchus? Yes, I would use Chiron as the modern ruler of Ophiuchus. Yes. The accidental alchemist, my moon is in Ophiuchus in the 10th house. All right, so you're going to have an illumination of your moon. That's your emotional body, your deeper self, and it's going to be in the context of the 10th house of your career and your productive life. J. Don, Ophiuchus moon in the 3rd house. So the full moon's going to illuminate, same thing, the moon, the emotional body. But for you in the 3rd house of learning, curiosity, interest, communication. Communication is a big one there. Have Bliss, hi souls. Great to see you. I like how you spelled hi, H-I-G-H. Karina, you're very welcome. Thank you so much. Connie, my midheaven is in Sagittarius in the 9th. So Sagittarius is the adventurer. You're here to leave behind adventure, higher perspectives, help expand perspectives. Help expand your own and other people's perspectives on life. And that's double emphasized with it being in the 9th house. John McBride, hey, what kind of elements is Ophiuchus? Water, fire, etc. Well, traditionally it's water. Traditionally it's water because it shares the same 8th house as Scorpio. So that's water and fixed. So fixed would be the modality. But in modern times, many attribute it to ether, the 5th element. And this makes a lot of sense considering that it is that center of the Milky Way. It is that very transformative, powerful energy. So if it is ether, it would probably be the only one that's ether. So if you want to include it as its own element, I would say ether, but I use the traditional, so water in this case. Have bliss, my natal Jupiter in Ophiuchus, second house. Hopefully it's gentle full moon for me. Jupiter in Ophiuchus. Yeah, it should be more gentle. Jupiter's not a super personal planet unless your rising sign is Sagittarius or Pisces. If your rising sign or your sun sign or your moon sign for that matter are Sagittarius or Pisces, then it can make it a little bit more personal, but it should be more mild either way. Aquarius sky clock, I have Neptune and Rahu in Ophiuchus. All right, Rahu, that's going to illuminate your life path. Neptune's a little more collective. I think we're about the same age there, Aquarius sky clocks, and we're all going to have that activating our Neptune. I also have Neptune in Ophiuchus, but that's very collective, more generational. Andrea, thank you for the beautiful newsletter. Glad you enjoyed it. I put a little personal touch there on the newsletter, thanks to my company manager. For those that know Annalena Fox, we've had her here on the live stream before, and I've been on her channel as well. She's the true sidereal guru for true sidereal human design, but she's now working at MTZ and has been helping us tremendously. And that was one of her suggestions, and I think it's a great one. Makes it more personal, but I'm glad you're enjoying the newsletter. Thank you, Andrea. Holly, my midheaven is in Taurus, midheaven ruler Venus in Sagittarius in the 5th house, right? So at Taurus, you're here to leave behind that resourcefulness, but it'll be through that 5th house of self-expression, playfulness, fun, creative energy. Be good to do, turn a hobby or interest into a career maybe. Things like this. All right, so we'll go ahead and start wrapping up here. Let me just see if there's any final questions, but I think this was a productive live stream. We went over the weekly energy. We covered some great questions from the community. Thank you all. A lot of support from the community. Thank you so much, everybody. But yeah, interesting week coming ahead. Hopefully I've been able to give a little bit of foresight there into some of this stuff. And of course the newsletter, which if you're not signed up to, Margaret, if you could post a link to the MTZ Insider sign up. If you go to the website, masterthezodiac.com and go to the, I think it's the miscellaneous or more section. There is the news, the weekly newsletter for this week. Just the intro, which you're going to click that and then you sign up for it and then you'll get emailed all of these updates. Really proud of the newsletter. Thank you, Margaret. It's there in the chat now. Really proud of the newsletter. It really dives into all these aspects in a written form, and then I think an easier to kind of describe, it takes its time with describing the energy, whereas this more free flow videos and stuff is a little more on the cuff. Is that right? Off the cuff. Let's see, Holly, whenever I watch MTZ Live, I reference my True Sidereal Chart report and e-reading, which I highly recommend. Oh, thank you so much, Holly. Yep, the report, very happy that you're finding it helpful. Took a lot of energy, took a lot of time with that report. Very happy that you're enjoying it. Andrea, I have Ophiuchus in the 9th house. Well, the full moon will be activating your 9th house, adventure, your perspective on life, philosophy, your view of life. Bobby, it's in your productive life, 10th house, productive life, career, achievement. Felicity, you can't make this up. Midheaven on Aries, Mars ruler in my 1st. Lifelong dancer, just connected with dancer group, creating legacy online platforms. Perfect. Great use case, great example of how accurate the midheaven can be with that ruler. Thank you so much for sharing that, Felicity. All right, everyone. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Have a great week, everybody. Thank you again for all of your support. If you haven't clicked the notification bell, so in this video down below, there's a little notification bell. That'll make sure you're notified every time that we do go live, but it's every week at the same time, 1:15 p.m. Eastern time of the Americas. And I hope to see you all next week after this interesting week. But have a great week, everyone. See you all then. Take care. Bye-bye.